Origins of Sunspot. Roberto da Costa is a mutant with the ability to harness the sun's power, which grants him superhuman strength, speed, and durability. Born in Brazil, Roberto comes from a wealthy family and has been described as brash and quick-tempered. Initially a member of the New Mutants, Roberto has since developed a long history with various teams affiliated with both the X-Men and the Avengers. Roberto first manifested his superhuman mutant powers when, at the age of 14, he was playing in a championship soccer match for his school team in Rio de Janeiro. Motivated by racial hatred, a boy named Keller and another member of the opposing team knocked da Costa to the ground. The hot-tempered da Costa retaliated by tackling Keller, who began brutally beating him. It was then that, without being aware of what was happening to him, da Costa first manifested his superhuman strength. His body and clothing temporarily turned black in the process, and he inadvertently hurled Keller away from him. Confused and frightened, da Costa sought help, but both the other players and most of the spectators panicked and fled. However, his girlfriend, Juliana Sandoval, who had been watching the game along with Emmanuel, stood by Roberto in his time of need. Roberto's powers came to the attention of Donald Pierce, the renegade white bishop of the inner circle of the Hellfire Club. Pierce sought to murder any superhuman mutants he could find. Pierce's mercenaries failed to abduct Roberto, but kidnapped Juliana instead. The mutant telepath, Professor Charles Xavier, founder of the X-Men, had learned of Pierce's plan to kill Roberto and sent his colleague, Dr. Moira MacTaggart, and the young superhuman mutants, Karma and Psyche, to help da Costa. Roberto agreed to meet with Pierce's men in order to obtain Sandoval's release, but the mercenaries refused to free her and intended to kill both of them instead. During a fight, one of the mercenaries fired at da Costa, who had returned to normalcy again, but Juliana leaped in front of da Costa, taking the fatal bullet herself. Anguished with guilt that Juliana had died protecting him, da Costa vowed to take vengeance on Pierce. Bobby joined Karma, Professor Xavier, and another young mutant, Wolfsbane, in tracking down Pierce, and they succeeded in defeating him. Da Costa agreed to stay with Professor Xavier and received training in the use of his superhuman powers as a member of the New Mutants, even when it was later discovered that Professor had originally created them because they had been possessed by a brood queen egg inside of him seeking young mutants for future embryos. In the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, the New Mutants were tutored by Professor X and trained in the use of their powers in the Danger Room. A founding member of the New Mutants, Bobby was a mainstay of the junior team for most of its existence and became best friends with his teammate Samuel Guthrie, Cannonball. Meanwhile, Bobby's father was contacted by the Hellfire Club and became a member of its secret inner circle under the alias of White Rook. He was the only person in the inner circle without superhuman powers. His performance in that role was almost unnoticed. Sunspot and Wolfsbane were injected with the same drug that gifted Cloak and Dagger with their powers. Unable to control himself, Bobby attacked the X-Man Colossus until the New Mutant magic returned the powers to the original owners. Empath of the Hellions turned Bobby and his teammate Magma over to the Gladiators, where they were forced to battle for entertainment by his former teammate Karma. Sunspot was contacted by mutant businessman, Gideon, after his father died. Gideon persuaded Sunspot into joining him, claiming to help him manage the family fortune. Gideon was actually a member of a group of mutants known as the Externals, who believed themselves to be immortal. Gideon believed that Sunspot was also an external, but after several harsh tests and experiments, Gideon was proven wrong. The tests overloaded him, giving a side effect that gave Bobby the ability to produce concussive blasts of heat and light. He was saved by his former teammates of the New Mutants that had reformed as X-Force. Sunspot joined the team. When Gideon experimented on Sunspot, he was able to copy his powers and give them to a test subject. The result was Rainfire. Rainfire became the leader of the Mutant Liberation Front, a mutant terrorist group. Rainfire gave hints that he was really Sunspot during the M.L.F's confrontation with X-Force. At that time, the real Sunspot had went into a transport portal while battling the MLF's Locus. In their next encounter, X-Force leader, Cable, telepathically restored Sunspot's memories. It turned out that Rainfire actually switched places with Sunspot through a telepathic link. Sunspot finally regained control. Sunspot was later blackmailed by Selene, the Black Queen of the Hellfire Club, into joining. She told him that Gideon's Damocles Foundation was attempting more experiments similar to the one that created Rainfire. Selene and X-Force went to stop him, but found out that Selene wanted the process for herself, and subdued the team. Selene then offered to resurrect Juliana if Bobby joined the Hellfire Club. Bobby agreed, but Selene only partially kept her word. She resurrected Juliana's spirit and put it in the body of a comatose patient. Sunspot served as the Black Rook, keeping it a secret from his friends. Sunspot also became the head of the Los Angeles branch of X Corporation, a search and rescue organization for mutants. Powers. Evolution, a side effect of the experiments Gideon performed on Sunspot, caused a rapid acceleration of his mutant gene. This change also causes his mutant gene to continuously evolve, making all his powers and abilities stronger as time passes. The constant evolution of his mutant gene also gives him new powers/abilities. Solar radiation absorption. Sunspot absorbs solar energy and can utilize it for physical strength. The cells of a normal human body convert energy from foodstuffs into a form of energy usable by the body. This energy is stored through converting molecules of adenosine diphosphate, ADP, in the cells into adenosine triphosphate, ADP. The energy is released when necessary by breaking a chemical bond in the ADP molecules, converting them back to ADP. Apparently, Sunspot can store solar-derived energy in his cells through the same, or a similar method, and release it when necessary to enhance his physical strength. His body is cloaked in darkness, because he drains all the ambient light from his skin. Solar rechanneling. Sunspot has the ability to rechannel the solar energy which his body absorbs, by which he takes the solar energy and uses it for a variety of related purposes. Flight. Sunspot has the ability to fly by propelling himself through the air, by force of will, by generating thermal updrafts. Bobby has also refined this ability to be able to hover in the air without leaving a heat trail, and can reach speeds of up to 150 miles per hour maximum without overexerting himself. Enhanced strength. When Sunspot's cells are powered by solar energy, he has the superhuman ability to augment his physical strength. The original limits of his strength was that of 25 tons. Since then, however, his strength has increased to 50 tons. Before, his superhuman strength could only be accessed when he was in his solar-powered form, but Roberto has been seen using his strength when out of his darkened form. The limits as to how much strength he is able to access outside of this form are unknown. Limited durability. Sunspot teammates would remind him that he was super strong, but not super durable. Although Sunspot has not been seen able to deflect bullets, his limited durability does provide his body the needed protection to be able to lift the massive weight that his super strength allows him to. Recently, Sunspot has been seen able to withstand the impact of a 18-wheeler moving at 100 miles per hour, and remain nearly unharmed. Thermokinesis. Sunspot has the ability to project heat in intense waves when he absorbs and rechannels solar energy from any part of his body to raise the temperature. Roberto can also absorb heat into his body to lower the temperature in his immediate area. He can also project and absorb heat directly into slash from people, causing intense discomfort at their fluctuating body temperatures. Thermokinetic concussive/energy blasts. During Sunspot's time with X-Force, he was kidnapped by a supervillain named Gideon who performed various experiments on him. Gideon exposed Sunspot's body to massive amounts of solar energy in order to test the limits of his solar absorption. After these experiments, Sunspot's body was overloaded with solar energy, and he later gained the ability to fire blasts of heat and concussive force. Limited photokinesis. Sunspot has the ability to project light in intense waves when he absorbs and rechannels solar energy, and absorb ambient wavelengths. Dark solar plasma blasts. Sunspot has the ability to project concussive dark plasma energy blasts from his hands, with about 20 tons of force behind them at their most powerful. Fire and heat immunity. As is the norm with most pyrokinetics, Sunspot is immune to all forms of heat and fire as they simply add to his abilities, and his mutant metabolism is able to simply convert these two forms and augment his abilities. Abilities. Athlete, Roberto is a very skilled soccer player, and used to play for his high school soccer team. Businessman, since becoming the CEO of DaCosta International, Roberto developed skills for business and finance. Combat, unarmed/armed. As part of the X-Men, Sunspot has been trained by the likes of Wolverine and other mutants in combat. Since joining the Avengers, Sunspot received further training. Multilingual, Roberto speaks English, Spanish, and is fluent in Portuguese.